What is up, my friends? Welcome to another global economic report. Let's get into it. We're back talking about China again today. There's just so much going on with China lately that can't seem to keep it out of these videos, okay? So what's going on lately is, to bring you up to speed if you haven't been following the trade tariff wars, is that essentially Beijing and, people on both sides, the US and China, are now talking again. China's openly admitted that they are open to talking, and they are trying to create a baseline and foundation of options to then discuss at the G20, which will be in Buenos Aires around the end of this month. So we're still a little bit a ways away from that, which is good. We got a couple weeks of solid talking time, because what some people are starting to accuse China of is just kind of tap dancing around the subject and not really wanting to get down into talking specifics, just wanting to keep the conversation very 40,000 foot view. So that's the biggest criticism that China's getting right now. But I think overall it's a positive. I think it's a positive that China just went recently to a world summit. There was a little scuffle with them and Australia that they quickly made comment on and publicly acknowledged. So they're definitely getting out there in a new way that we haven't really seen recently. And for all the bad rap that China gets, I think that this is a positive. Recently, also about 5 days ago now, China lifts the ban on Bitcoin. So individuals and businesses can now own cryptocurrencies legally. This is a great step forward. China is obviously a big player in the space from a Bitcoin mining standpoint and from just a population standpoint. So is India, which is why I'm always talking about China and India. They are two countries that have over 1 billion people in population, and China has the cheapest electricity costs in the whole world, so they are a big player in the actual mining efforts of Bitcoin. The ban started back in 2017, so it's really good that this has been lifted. This is positive news and moving in the right direction. Now let's talk about something that is terrifying, is that the Chinese population has been getting not just a first home, but a second home. And now increasingly, this stat is from Q1 of 2018, a third home. That's right, my friends. A lot of Chinese residents have a third home. And this dovetails into this terrifying piece, which is that a fifth of China's homes are empty. 50 million apartments in China are empty, and that is these second and third homes. These third homes especially are sitting vacant in vacant cities with no people living in them, malls falling apart. This is the strangest thing. And this is nothing new, actually. There's videos dating back to 2010, 2011 actually talking about this and originally exposing this. This is nothing new. This is a way that China's kind of hidden its GDP and always made it appear to the outside that they are growing and everything is fine. But there is this new research that is been accumulated just from surveys since 2017, but it's soon to publish research that will show roughly 22% of China's urban housing stock is unoccupied, according to this professor Gan Li, who runs the main nationwide study that adds up to the 50 million empty homes. This, to a lot of people, I think, even though this is a topic that's been discussed since, like I said, 2010, 2011, I mean, I think even 60 Minutes did a piece on this. But even though that's been talked about for all these years, I think this is still going to be a new piece for a lot of people to hear about. And you thought the housing bubble was bad in the United States, where people were over leveraging to get a second house and a third house and a fourth house. Well, just look at the sheer size of popularity in getting this third house and this third property. These aren't even properties, actually. That's, let me say this correctly, getting that third home. I would like to see some Q2, Q3 numbers, because this is just first quarter of 2018. It's telling, but it could have completely reversed. I doubt it, considering we see this gradual increase. The only time we saw a pullback was in 2012, a slight 2014. Since then, we've seen an increase through the entire year. These are year on top of year, and now we're just in the first quarter of 2018, so it could pull back a little bit, but we're looking like we're going to be increasing this, okay? Increasing this swell in this size. So very interesting, very telling. Next, some of this is a little bit older, but I don't think that a lot of people caught on to this, because the original piece that this was referenced on Zero Hedge only got 11 shares. Okay, so foreign investors reduce Chinese bond holdings for the first time since February 2017. 3 months ago, something unprecedented happened to China's economy. For the first time since 1998, China reported current account deficit for the first half of the year. That's the graph that you see on the screen right now, with the sources. So what does this actually mean? Well, it can be summarized into the following: greater reliance on foreign funding, a more open capital account, a weaker Chinese yuan, and deeper and less manipulated capital markets. Now, the one that I obviously want to focus on is increasing reliance on outside capital. That's where this next piece comes in. And this happened in October, is that all of a sudden the global investor enthusiasm sort of diminished towards corporate bonds, towards Chinese corporate bonds. And this essentially fell through the floor. That's what this is here, this gap. This is bad. This could be because of the currency weakening. We've seen the wobbling of the CNY, or the Chinese yuan, the collapsing of the premium over the US interest rates, foreign holdings of yuan dropping, the trade wars. There could be a lot of different things going on here, okay? But essentially what we're seeing is the enthusiasm towards Chinese corporate bonds is dropping significantly. Okay, this last graph that we're going to look at is from China Bond, and it's showing, it's adjusted to show the JPM, which is JP Morgan, JBIEM, China Bond Index, and the Shanghai Shenzhen CSI 300 Index, equities and bonds. It's slight, but what it does represent is a change in an outflow for the first time since February of 2017. So that's the most significant thing to note here. So this just further proves that it's not all rainbows and sunshine in China, even though they're working on the One Belt, One Road initiative, and they've got some other interesting things in the pot. They are facing their own challenges. Next, again, it's not always sunny in China. So there's a bank run that essentially happened, reported on through the 7th and 8th of this month. A little bank too, a really small bank in a city of Zhejiang. So it was the actual Bank of Zhejiang. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, in the Sichuan province. Basically what happened was a news report came out, stated that 5.7 billion in loans were overdue. That's huge losses, right? So the post was deleted pretty quick, but it created a chaos, which this screenshot right here and some videos went viral like across the internet immediately with what was going on. So they have 32 branches in the city, 1.2 million people. So yeah, Bank of Zhejiang is the latest to get a bank run. This isn't something new. This has happened throughout Europe. This has happened throughout history, but it is another indication that things aren't that great, and that maybe the roosters are starting to come home. The chickens are starting to come home to roost. There it is. So it'll be interesting to see how this all shakes out, but there's another piece. All right, the last piece I'm going to leave you with is a big deal that, again, I don't really see a lot of people talking about. I will link to the article, and of course, I want to start showing you some of these pieces like in the wild, because people, for some reason, think that these are like, some people think this shit, I'm making this up, and these are made up. I don't understand how or why, but Henli, or Hengli, is a petro company in China, one of the biggest, teamed up with a huge Saudi petro provider for 130,000 barrels per day. This will be a major play. This is huge. And so now they're starting to get some oil from Saudi Arabia. This is interesting because if you remember who's buying the debt, some of the US debt, Saudi Arabia is becoming a big player. So it just further proves like massive incest, you know what I mean, that's going on with all these countries. So China stops and now it's going to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is buying some of the US dirt and old debt, and Saudi Arabia and the United States are doing business. We had that interesting slash cover up with the reporter that got killed and all the kind of fallout that's been happening with that. So all these macro pieces are connected, right? Even though I don't think a lot of people are paying attention, and it makes total sense. It's hard to pay attention when there's so much propaganda thrown in your face every single day and so much emotional just being flung at you. Most people react and they're not paying attention to these kind of macro plays. Anyways, that's what's going on with China. Now you're up to date on that, my friends. If you could, just take a second, place a like on this video. If you want to chime in with your thoughts, your opinions, go ahead, place a comment below. And if this is your first time to the channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and be on the lookout because we'll be dropping more global economic reports very soon, my friends. See ya.